Hi everybody, this is Kaylee from Living with Eden's Treasures. I wanted to share our favorite curriculum for learning to read. I personally was not taught phonics, and that really hurt me. It hurt me in a lot of ways, not just in reading, but it also hurt with self-esteem. I always just seemed to struggle more than everyone else. And in elementary school, when they would break up, the reading groups into little groups, there was the accelerated, and then you had the like 3 or 4 different groups, and I was always in the slower one. And my parents actually had no idea that I didn't know phonics, and they didn't know that until probably after I was married. And my sister also was not taught phonics, but my brother was, and my parents just assumed that we were all taught phonics. And so anyway, it hurt me in reading, even as a teenager in high school, to have to get up in front of the class reading. If it wasn't a word I knew, I didn't know it. And anyway, so I did not want my children to go through that. I wanted them to be taught phonics. And anyway, I had somebody introduce me to this book, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. I don't have the book with me. It's at our house, and we're away right now. And actually, I'll say that once we've started the book with all of my children, we didn't even finish the book. And it just got to a point where the kids had the skills and they wanted to move on to actually reading real books and not just the stories that were in the last few lessons. And they started kind of, I guess, getting bored with it, and they wanted to enjoy whatever book they were interested in at the time. But I was talking about this with somebody else before, and they were telling me, oh, this isn't phonics. Phonics is only when it's the the main sound of your consonants and then the short sounds of vowels. And so when I say phonics, to me that is, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but for me, phonics is you can look at it and sound it out. And this book, it makes everything regular. There's no question, is this a long E? Is this a short E? Is this a silent E? When the child looks at the letters, they look at the symbol, they know exactly what's expected of them and which E sound, which A sound. And other than, I think there was 3, maybe 4 words that were just given, like a capital I was just given as the word I. And the word was, you had them sound it out, and then you told them that is how you sound it out. Was is how we sound it out, but we say it as was. There was maybe 4 words, but I can only think of 3 right now, that it was just given, this is how you sound it out, but that's not how we say it, this is how we say it. Other than that, all of the sounds were able to be decoded just by looking at it. And then as so I'll introduce, what that means. You can see some of the sounds here. Actually, I'll slide it down so you can see some more. But part of it is learning to sound out and moving that to actually speaking the word. And the way most people are taught to sound out, like, let me just write a word, for example. If a child was sounding this out, usually they go k, at, k, at. The way this has you do it, they have this symbol with the arrow to keep kids in line and not lose their place, is you play games and you do the sounding out with your sounds, but where you do it fast and you do it slow, and you do it slow and you do it fast, and you play with word games that way too to get used to it before they even get to the word part. But so for here, the child would start their finger here, and when they get to each mark, that's when they make the sound. But if they were sounding it out slow, actually I did that wrong, sorry. If it's an arrow underneath, that means you can't say it slow. If there's a dot, you can say it slow. So it'd be k, at. There's not that break, k, at, like what's normally done. And when you learn to sound it out slowly, especially when you're starting with the vowels, is how it starts in the beginning of the book. But you can just sound it out and not put that space. And when you put that space, it jars up words, and it makes children, when they're sounding it out and they're starting to read, it's choppy. It doesn't sound like how they normally speak. But when they're sounding it out as cat. There's no k at. It's not broken up. And that was one of the things that I like about it. And you actually have to retrain yourself when you go to teach your kids to do it slowly and do it fast, because we're used to just saying it fast, and we're used to that breaking up the sounds when we sound it out. But so let's do another one that doesn't have any of these short sounds. So let's say Sam. So in the written book, you have that, and that. So you could go Sam, 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 Sam. And so it flows together, and they're able to learn that slow, fast, as they practice it, and it goes together easy. And some of the word games would be like, oh, and that's one of the things, it tells you exactly what to say in a lesson. Now, I don't always do exactly what it says, but it really helps parents who don't know what to do, and it also helps them not to say too much, because saying too much can get the kids confused and frustrated, and it just gives their mind more than they can focus on. So it has very clear, this is exactly what you say, and that's written in red in the book, and then in black is the actions that you take. So it would say, say motor boat. So you would say it slow, motor boat. Say it fast, motorboat. Or it might have it where it's one long, I'm trying to think of one of the words. I can't think of one right now for some reason. But it would have words that were just all where you could say them, just like Sam. Say Sam slow. You would demonstrate it, and then the child would do it, where it's, the Sam. And this wouldn't even be with paper or the book. This is just y'all talking, where you're sitting there saying, say it slow, and they Sam, say it fast, Sam. And so they play those games, and they get used to that, but they're also learning their sounds exactly. So, actually, I should have put that in here, just because I've got so many the E sounds. So when you have this sound, it's ah, and it's always ah. That's just the way it is. This is always E. This is made as, so when they do the blends, they're made as one symbol. So the S is touching the H, so it goes together. So that separates, where the child doesn't have to figure out, is this a sh sound or is this a s sound? This is always sh. It just is. Now, they are very, very particular when you're introducing your short sounds that you can't say long, like t and d. It's not duh. It's not de. It's not day. It is d. It's a very short. You have to pay attention. I had to really think about this and find words that had a D at the ending and try to really practice that, because you automatically want to go duh or, d, something like that. And so I had to think like mud and figure out, exactly how does my mouth move when I say mud. It's very short. And same with T. It's t. It's not t. It's not T. It's not ta. It's a very t. It's just that slight sound that you make, when your tongue hits whatever part of your mouth for any of those short sounds. Same with, see, k. It's not k. It's not, got any other vowel after. It's just k. And you have to pay really close attention to that, as far as making it as simple as possible for the child to learn to read. So if you teach them this is k and a and t, cat, that's not, that makes it more confusing, where they have to decipher more and figure out more than if they had just learned this as a very short k, k, at, not cat, if that makes sense. And so that, especially since I wasn't taught phonics, and even with a lot of phonics curriculums, I hear people do it where they have the vowels at the end of these sharp sounds. But so I had to really, on some of them, process, okay, how do we do that exactly? But it has a key in the front where it goes through and it tells you all the sounds, how they're written, and the exact way to pronounce it. And it gives you, words where, say TH, and may say as in bath. So that's the that we're making, not the that. It's actually, it's the same. There's another TH, so it's not the same. But anyway, so it breaks it up for you, so you know exactly which sound you're supposed to be doing. And once you get, the sounds figured out, it's really easy. It really is like 15 minutes or less, or maybe a little bit more depending on your child's age, to do a whole lesson. And so you start, they actually prefer you start where your child doesn't know sounds or the names of the letters. But you can do it either way. But by the time you finish the 100 easy lessons, and really for most kids, they probably could do it in 100 days, whether you're doing it, all day, every week. Not all day, but, all day a week, every day a week. Or, if you're just doing that, 5 days a week or ever so many days a week. But really, they could get it in 100 days. That's how it's set up, is to be 100 lessons. And when you finish it, it is the end of a second grade reading level. And so that's really in 100 lessons. They're getting a lot, and it's not confusing. So we'll go ahead and, like, this is, you would start here, but you don't make the sound until you get there. So, ah, say it fast, ah. You got your E, and you got sh, oops, sh. And then you got your short sounds, a t and d. Actually, I did d. All right, so for your silent letters, they're always in there, but they're written small. So the child is just told, when it's small, you don't say it. So this is 8. And they just know. They don't have to figure out, is that an E sound? Why is it silent? They don't have to ask those questions. It's just when it's this way, it's silent. Same with oat. And I introduced very early with my kids that the silent letters are nice letters. I know people do it the opposite of me, but they're nice letters who give their sound to the vowel before them, so that letter can say its name. A lot of times when you're having this happen with a silent letter, there's 2 consonants. So let's say if this word was boat. What I told my kids is each consonant has to have a vowel. And of course, this is my own. This is not what's in the book. And so if this was not with an A, if it was an O, if it was bought, it doesn't get to say its name because it had to share a little with B and it had to share a little with T. But when A is there, it's sweet, and it's like, I'm going to break me up. I'm going to give all I've got to you so you can say O. And so the silent letters are just really nice giving letters, so that the O doesn't have to be broke up and be shared with the B and the T. And so that was my way of describing silent letters to my kids. But in this way, they don't have to think and figure out, is this a silent A? Is this an ah? Is it a, just an A? They don't have to figure it out. It's simple. And as the lessons go, and as they get used to the sounds, then it starts dropping these things. So say the word C. When they see the word C, it would be an S, and then it would be 2 of these E's. Well, as they get C over and over and over again, then they start dropping that line, because now they're used to the word C. And so it takes, many lessons. It's more towards at least the middle, if not more towards the end. But their eyes are used to it. Their words, are formed. They're used to this pattern, and so they don't need that decoding anymore. But it written this way makes it where they don't have to decode. It is what it is. They can look at it. They can see it. And then as the sentence started getting formed, you have your words together, and it would have an arrow. Let me set it up a little bit. There would be like an arrow start here, and it would wrap and go across, and then it would, if you had multiple, let's just pretend these are all sentences. If you had multiple, sentences where there was more layers, so the arrow would start here under everything, it would go around, and then it'd show an arrow coming back over here to start here again. And that just helps the kids to stay in pattern of the right direction, reading, left to right, and going back to the beginning on the left side again, and going again, and it would do that over and over. And as the lessons go, those lines disappear, these lines disappear as they get used to it. And it just really, in my experience, I have 5 kids, 2 of them have not really started this yet, but I've done 3 of my children through it. It is very, very simple, and it makes it where they can sit there and do extra activities where they can draw their own little sounds if they want and make up their words. My kids really like to get words. So in the beginning it's doing sounds, and it's doing, it might be like ES, as a sound that they get together where it's not words yet, but they're putting letters together. And my kids like to have words. They like to be able to say, this is mom. So if they got the first sound for M and then they got, the O, well, we'll go ahead and play after and write and, well, how do you say this? And they sound it out even though it's not part of the lesson. So you can add to it. When they start getting sentences, there will be sentences they read, and then there's a picture that matches, and they don't look at the picture until after they've read their sentences that go with it. And you would ask questions to help with their comprehension. Did they understand, what do you think's going to be in the picture? And you would just ask questions off of the story, and they're guided. They tell you what to ask. So they're not using the picture to tell you what's going on in the story. They're having to use the story first, and then they get the reward of seeing the picture. And yeah, I was right. That's exactly what happened. And so that's something you always cover up the picture beforehand. But when they're learning and they're not fluent yet, it does have them read multiple times the story. They're reading it once where they're reading it slow and sounding it out. And I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 times, or it depends on the child. They do it again and again. And as the stories get long, my kids would get tired with that. And so I would have them sound out like the word and then say it fast. And we might do, several words or a first line, and then we would read it again. So they would be sounding it all out and then doing it fast. And it would just make it where if we needed to stop, or they were getting a complete thought, all put together where they could read it fast before going through the story completely over and over again. And so you can play with it a little bit for what each child needs. But as far as the building blocks, because I'll say I didn't do all of the instructions to a T exactly like it says to do as far as the games and the amount of times of reading. But as far as the learning the symbols and learning to decode, this is the absolute best way that I have seen. There's no confusion, and it's just the best to me. And I know this was kind of a long story, but I'm trying to summarize the whole method and what's taught in the book. But anyway, if you haven't checked this out, I would definitely recommend that you do it. Actually, the first time I saw the book, I got it from the library. So that's definitely a place you can look at it and see if you like it before you buy it. It's just the best to me, and all my kids have done really well with it. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've seen this, if it sounds like something that would work for you.